Welcome, everybody, back to Distantquest. My name is Bronimus. On the last Distantquest gameplay, we had the Psionic, and I believe this week we have the Disciple. So let's get right into it. I'm excited for this. So this is Volume 4, The Disciple. The Necolution will not be televised. Alright. Kind of warning, blood, animal death, and dismemberment, references to torture and off-screen death. Oh, good. Let's get right into it, shall we? You feel like you are finally starting to get a handle on this whole time travel thing. Sure, you pride yourself that you were, you're no slouch before. I mean, it's not everyone who can bring themselves back and again from repeated, brutal, horrifying, awful, distressing, traumatizing. Alright, the adjectives are getting away from you there. I'd be surprised we can go on, honestly. In any case, it's not everyone who can bring themselves back from failure to ensure the best and most friendful of outcomes. Still, since you became more consciously aware of those abilities, it sometimes felt less like choosing a river and more like being one of those dead minnows that floats to the top tangled in pond scum and at the mercy of the currents. Not anymore, though. Now we're choosing our own destiny. You're not ocean debris, you're a salmon. A paper-white, spherical, friend-shaped salmon who's about to swim upstream of the Alpha timeline and spawn a whole hell of a lot of... Now, where the fuck are you exactly? That's where the shit am I at any given moment. You take a moment to take stock of your surroundings. It appears to be a cave of some sort with cavernous walls, as caves tend to have, decorated with colors that, from your experience of Alternia, is less likely to be blood as paint. Or, usually it's the same thing. Perilous warning signs, to be sure, but... Your encounter with the Signless had carried more than a few valuable reminders about your purposes here. Ooh, this is nice. You wouldn't exactly call it a pep talk, but it had jarred you a little out of that existential funk. Truth, relevance, and essentiality aside, you're lonely, as the MSPA always is. You still need people, even if it's not in the same starved way you used to. Besides, you've done caves before, painted caves even, and you and Dodge made it out just fine with minimal Super Saiyan-esque antics. Minimal. Emboldened by your status as experienced adventurer and friend maker, you decide to take a closer look at the art. Is it a shipping chart? Okay. Okay, I get what it is now, but I thought it was a lot worse than it was before. Ugh. Despite the rough settings, you're surprised at the level of detail on the paintings. The soot-black features are stark and mysterious even in the dim light of the caverns, and make the color of their eyes and clothes stand out more vividly. Eyes. You're no art critic, but in terms of contrast, you give this a 10. Some of these features seem oddly familiar, although the one featured most frequently seems to be without a sign or very visible horns. You squint hard at the colors. Burgundy? Realization slides down your throat like ice, though, as you realize, clearly, the artist lacks the materials to render the candy red of his blood and eyes, but there's no mistaking that hood or the distinctive horns of the jade next to him. You start to walk quickly down the line, trying to take in as much of the story as you can. The two are eventually joined by an olive and goldblood, though you don't think you've met them or their descendants yet. The other members of the clade, then? You begin to notice above all of them are words, seemingly clawed into the side of the cave walls. Your Alternian's been a little rusty since you were de-scratched, but you can make out snatches of words. And if I speak of love to these, then who can say what the reaping of it will be? As you walk, you feel the cave closing tighter around you. You seem to be going further into the depths. The images shift, the olive, the gold, and the red entwined. Purple figures approach and drag them away, the jade kneeling. And indigo, their bow drawn taut. You feel the tension start to rise up in your throat, and you break into a run towards the next mural. That love, once planted, will plant 1,000,000 more. Kindness flows as easily as blood, no matter the veins. Well, you burst into a small grotto, finding yourself face to face with the largest mural yet, the Signless, hands chained above his head, diagonal lines of red slashed across his dark torso, and the look on his face is one you've never seen him before, utter fury. There is more Alternian scratched and broad, brutal slashes on the walls beside it, but before you can begin to parse out what it says, your attention is suddenly caught by the figure in front of it. A troll stands up, hand dripping with dark liquid. They swipe a hand across the stone, adding more detail to the mural. You can't make out their face under the masses of thick, matted hair, but you can see peaks of olive and what remains of their clothes. After a moment, their hands drop to their sides. They stand, motionless before their work, so still and quiet that you could mistake them for a statue. Before you can consider what to do next, or even the possibility of a binary choice about it, no choices yet, the figure turns. Who are you? Well, now that's a hell of a loaded question. This is not the time, MSPA. You find yourself struggling for words, looking between her and the awful painting. You knew it hadn't ended well. In some less fortunate timeline, there was a version of you that had ended up in the Dolorosa's aftermath. But to see it rendered like this, after just talking to him, it feels more visceral, more raw. In the mural, he looked so angry, mouth pulled back to expose his teeth, an expression you could barely imagine on the cautious young man that you'd met not a few weeks before, the one who'd promised that the world was ready for kindness and mercy. But it appears you've delayed too long. She's approaching you now, slowly at first, but her hands are twitching in a way that makes her set of intimidatingly long claws particularly apparent. Get out. Should you explain, maybe? Get out! Cheesy Pete's. Get out! Okay, decision made for you. I'm gone. You turn tail and run as fast as your legs can carry you. You hear the padding of footsteps behind you and begin to search desperately for an exit. There's no sunlight or moonlight that you can see, though, and the tunnels just seem to lead into more and more tunnels. Finally, you do what at this point seems like the most natural flight reflex. You reach out with your mind and wriggle around until you find a tear big enough to leap through. You're blinded by a flash of light and then find yourself suspended in the air. Panic, you kick a bit as you begin to orient yourself to your new settings. You quickly realize your hoodie appears to be caught in a tree branch, suspending your little body above the ground. After struggling for a truly embarrassing amount of time to free the fabric manually, you give up and finally decide to just take it off and reckon with the consequences. You slip your arms out of the sleeves and tumble down to the stony earth straight onto your ass, as I typically do, as long as there's no one underneath you this time. Fortunately, your ass is a veteran of such affairs, and he manages to land you in a patch of earth with the smallest amount of rocks and roots. You lay there, disoriented, before finally getting to your feet, dusting yourself off, now to grab the hoodie. You spend a few minutes jumping and groping at thin air, trying to catch hold of the sleeve, when your attention is very quickly arrested by a figure in the shadows, prowling across the clearing, nearly on all fours as she moves languidly across the grass. Oh god, had she followed you? You never had someone do that before, but that doesn't happen. Who follows somebody? But with the number of fractures in your space, oh shit, fuck, oh shit, you dive into the bush without second thought, leaving the hoodie behind. The troll approaches the tree, but not the bush. Wait, is it possible she hasn't seen you? She seems taken with the hoodie, making loud sniffing noises. Sniff, sniff. Well, what? Oh boy, what kind of voice is fucking this disciple? What did? Shit. What did I give Mulin? Just excited. I think of what Mulin was. But like, so if Nepeta was kind of down here. Well, what have we here? She seems less angry somehow than she was 5 minutes ago, but the long claws you're only realizing now may be synthetic are stained in colors that are increasingly all too familiar. This kitty means business, and currently you are the memo at the top of her desk. She gently pulls the hoodie off the tree branch, examining it closely and taking a few big whiffs for good measure. Then her eyes lash onto the sign, and her slit-like pupils flare wide. Now, what's a Sorarlian doing all the way out here? Oh fuck, judging by the look on her face, you're mistaken. Cass is about to do you any favors. Still, there's no way you're going to remain unnoticed for long. What do? Run, do as the Catgirl does. Sniff, 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 sniff. Boy, run? That seems like a bad idea. I truly don't know. I would say run, because that's like, you don't run from cats. You don't run from big cats. That's how you get dead. But if you do as the Catgirl does, let's run. That seems like a bad idea. Let's run. Well, why bother messing with an old standby? You roll to your feet in true ninja fashion, I doubt that, and bolt, hoping for the briefest of moments that you might catch her off guard long enough to get another rip in time and have Aradia bail your ass out. Something you neglect to remember, however, is that big cats are predators. Their eyes are keyed towards motion, dipshit. Yes! In hindsight, you really should have seen this one coming. Hell yeah, I was right. Awesome. All right, now let's zip on by everything. Do as the Catgirl does. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. That was the logic there, is that cats, they follow motion, and they like to chase things. So do as the Catgirl does. Look, you don't know this lady. In fact, you're fairly certain you haven't met her descendant either. But one thing's for sure, from the horns to the eyes to the inexplicable puns, she's every inch some kind of ancient precursor to a Catgirl. And if you've learned anything from your time with Wanshi and a traumatizing read-through of Soldier Purbeasts, it's that Catgirls are suckers for one thing and one thing only. Role-playing? Role-play. Slowly, carefully, you crawl out of the bush, keeping your body in a crouch. She turns, eyes widen when she sees you and your posture. Still, she doesn't move to take you out, which you take as encouragement. In your best Twinkle Paw voice, you begin to tell her how sorry you are for intruding on a Huntress's grounds. An unimaginable affront, but it was unavoidable, as you find yourself in a desperate situation. Or, dare you say, desperate. It is actually impossible that you could feel like more of a dumbass than you do. I doubt that. I feel like a dumbass almost every day of my fucking life. Than you do in the brief silence, but at least you're not a dead dumbass. Her eyebrows shoot up high enough that they threaten to fly off her face entirely. Then, just when you're sure she's about to flex her hand and be done, her eyes narrow, the pupils thinning to lines as she crouches down next to you, resting back on her haunches.
Desperate, Well, I suppose I could forgive the offense. If there's a tale to go along with it.
For a second, you blink, blindsided by the idea that your bullshit just worked. I mean, one of these days doing the first idiotic thing, or second, depending on if you made the other choice first, which I did, that pops into your head has gotta come back and bite you in the ass, right? Still, apparently the universe isn't feeling your ass today. Good? Seizing upon the lifeline that she's tossed you, you begin to do what you do best, spin. You tell your story as quick as you can, translating off the cuff into terms more suited for the genre. You tell her that you are currently on a roadside tour of history with the help of your friend, Bone Pelt. Or your friend, Bone Pelt. You have to check with Arati on that later. It's idiotic sounding, even to you, but her expression gives away nothing, at least until you run out of things to ramble about.
I see. Well, in that case, I presume you'll be needing this back.
She proffers the hoodie to you. Proffers? Was that a word? I'm an idiot. So I don't know. For a moment, you just look at it, then look at her, then at her, half expecting it to be some kind of gotcha. Still, she doesn't look necessarily murderous, and this dialogue has gone on way too long to have it be the first bad end, so you take it gratefully. Thanks for that.
After all, what's a word without
Her shoulders seem to shake for a moment. You tense, only to be hit by the loud, raspy noises of her laughter. Despite its suddenness, it's hard not to be a little swept up in it with her entire body moves with the laughter, letting it tumble her back to sit on the grass as she clutches her sides. You feel a couple chuckles escape despite yourself.
Couldn't keep a straight face.
After another moment, I like her art. I like the big ears. She wipes her eyes, taking a shuddering breath. Her head tilts as she regards you with an amused expression.
You should know, it's not easy to surprise me. So, what's a hornless little wriggler like you doing here in the outskirts? It's not exactly popular with tourists.
Now that you're no longer cowering in fear, you find it hard not to notice how pleasant her voice is. It's soft and lilting, with the faintest accent. Oh, interesting. Okay, never mind. There's a quiet quality to it as well, like she isn't really used to using it. You're not exactly a tourist, you tell her.
What then?
Man, she just goes, she's just 2 for 2 on questions with complicated answers. If you could read properly, Brotimus. You scrounge around the corners of your mind for one that doesn't sound like the biggest heap of bullshit a bull ever did shit, with when an 8-foot light bulb in the shape of a troll grinds that train of thought to a screeching halt. Oh, hey! She's got a fucking sandal. It's Kanaya's the Dolorosa! Man, you've got to tone down the milk quest. Wielding what appears to be a sandal as she charges out of the bushes, teeth bared. Your new friend looks back in confusion, and you nearly pop away in fear before the jade's head catches up with her reflexes. She stops short, the footwear slowly drops to her side as her gaze lowers to your level, the rage fading into bewilderment, and you flatter yourself eventually, morphing into an expression of pleasant surprise. It's you. Yeah, it is me. Don't hit me with the sandal, please. That is certainly one way of referring to yourself. The olive, who seems wholly unfazed by the rainbow drinker with deadly shoe game nearly rushing you, gets to her feet, brushing the dust off her legs.
Rosa, perfect timing. I was only alone with them for 10 minutes before you rushed in to save the day.
The Dolorosa, Mrs. Merriam, the Silas's hot mom, you really should have asked first names at some point, gives her a side eye before dropping the shoe and slipping her foot back in. There's a slight smile twitching at the corners of her mouth regardless. I left my knife back at camp. I had to improvise.
I'm sure you'd be just as formidable, Purim.
The Dolorosa rolls her eyes.
I appreciate the attempts to soothe my stung pride, Lejean, but the cat buns sort of reopened the wound. In any case,
she turns her full attention back to you.
What are you doing here?
There's a slight pause before she amends, voice a bit gentler.
Not that it's not good to see you, of course. My charge and I have been wondering when you would turn up again, or, well, if... You know this mutant? They're a friend.
That's another way of referring to yourself, and a better one in your opinion.
We've encountered them once or twice. The one who...
She makes the same limp hand circle the Silence had used to indicate portals. The olive nods, and the Dolorosa returns her attention to you.
What have you been up to?
That's a bit of a complicated answer. After leaving the silence, you pop back in to check with Aradia on the next event you should visit. She seemed preoccupied, kept looking at certain cracks and muttering to herself. Ultimately, though, she told you to continue to follow your instincts, and you suppose it led you here. You tell the Dolorosa you've been hopping around a bit, trying to catch them, which is roughly true. Now she wouldn't mind. Where and when exactly are you?
It's been a few perigrees since he last saw you. As for where...
The Olive, Lejean, no titles you guess, maybe not every adult has one, you're still figuring the rules out, chimes in.
A few nights south of Trashcut.
She studies you curiously, a smile spreading across her face. It's a good smile, you think. Excited and warm, like she really is happy to see you. Then her lips pull back to reveal a sharp set of fangs, and you wonder.
So you're the traveler, then. It's good to meet you at last.
Likewise, you tell her. It's not technically a fib. Sure, you hadn't exactly known of her specifically, but it's not hard to work out she's one of the Clade members. One of... Oh, how'd he put it? A piece of his heart? The Dolorosa adjusts her clothes a bit.
In any case, Huntress, are you perhaps hoping if you keep still long enough the prey will come?
So there is a title? You notice Lejean's hands twitch ever so slightly, which has your heart in your throat, but her voice is even and light when she speaks.
Sitting still would be better than scaring them off, Firefly. But if you're getting hungry, then I suppose we can speed things along.
She looks at you, the faintest light of mischief, or maybe more excitement, it's hard to say, in her eyes.
There's a creek a little ways from here. You up for it?
Is she inviting you on a fishing trip? There's a past version of you, a version driven by forces that they never fully understood, who would swoon at the prospect. A fishing trip, a good old grounding fishing trip with nothing to do but sit by the water, look out on the placid ripples, and talk about life, about girls, about growing up. You'd have fainted dead away. But you're a more mature person now. A person who nobly accepts the offer with only a couple of happy tears in their eyes.
Good. Well, if we're having another for dinner, I'd best go tell the others. I'll have things ready when you arrive.
You wave goodbye and turn back to the Huntress, who's already disappearing into the trees. You trot after, huffing a bit as you try to keep up with her pace. She keeps stopping to sniff the air, which seems like an interesting tactic to track down a stationary river, but then you're not the hunter here. Fair point. Yeah, you gotta sniff the water. You're gonna get those water vapors in there.
They told me about a time-traveling alien. I must admit I was expecting someone taller.
Well, that's a new one. Is it fair? You say if it's any consolation, your height is pretty inconsistent. It's up to plot. I'm as tall as plot needs me to be. You'll have to wait for the next end card to see how it shakes out this time. The sound of running water cuts you off. Ooh. Your experience with Alternia rivers has been less than ideal, but there seems to be a lack of murderous sea dwellers near this one. The water is clear and fast-moving, forming rapids a bit further down from where you are. Dark shapes wriggle and squirm in ways just off enough from earthfish to make you feel oddly queasy. You move to sit down on the banks, but Lejean wades right in. She looks back at you, head tilted a bit askance.
Well,
you'd kind of been hoping to avoid a dip in the freezing water, but shouting at her from the shoreline doesn't sound like the greatest conversation method. Sheepishly, you say something about poles, even as you roll at the bottom of your sweatshirt to try and minimize the soaking. Poles. Oh, fishing poles. Got it.
It's easier when you put yourself in the meowdle of it, I promise.
The water is about as warm as you'd expect from a mountain stream, which is to say, not fucking very. You wait, it's fucking freezing. Are you kidding me? You wade out to about where she is, though the water hits you much higher than it does her.
Now just keep still. Let them forget you're even here.
Easier said than done. The current doesn't seem strong at first, but the gravel of the river bottom is loose, and the fish darting around you make it hard to focus on grounding yourself. Your arms flail wildly as you try to keep your balance, and finally she catches you by the hands.
Easy. Pick a fish, focus on it.
Still teetering, you try to force yourself to look down. It's hard, for a minute, to look at any one fish. Little schools of them dart around your legs, and any time your eyes latch onto one, another starts wiggling around. Finally, you pick one. A round little fuck. I wasn't expecting. There's this round little fucker down here. A round little fuck with a patch of lighter scales on the top that makes it easier to keep track of.
Watch its body language. Think about only its movements. What it's thinking about. What it'll go towards.
You've tried to empathize with people of all makes and molds in your times on this planet. The fauna are a new one, but you try to do as she asks. Maybe it's all in your head, but as you focus with all your might, slowly everything around starts to fade out. It's just you and this little wiggling blob under the water. You watch as it squirms between its fellows. As the Huntress's hands slowly release your own, you remain steady on your feet, refusing to break your gaze. You realize it's doing a little hunting of its own, creeping up towards the water bugs, hopping along the surface of the water.
That's it. Just breathe, and when the moment is right...
The smooth surface of the water is suddenly distorted. then just as quickly returns to normal. You hear a sudden wet slapping sound, and when you look up, you realize Lejean is holding a fish in her teeth. Catgirl, right? Yeah, right. Hard to tell past the wriggling trout, but you think she might be grinning at you? Either way, she tosses it onto the shore and looks back at the water. Seconds later, her hands have shot in again. It's a little unsettling to watch her snap them up with her jaws, but you find it hard to argue with the results. Some of the fish start to scatter, but it seems like she's too quick for them to catch on, if that makes sense. A small pile grows by the shore. Oh, this music is really nice. Oh, it's so relaxing. I like this. This is nice. You return your attention to your fish. It's swimming precariously close to your own legs, and you decide now is the moment. I like that we just watch, like there's that beat there. I really like that. It's a nice touch. You try to mimic her easy, fluid movements, almost casual. Like, hey, no big deal, little buddy, just a pair of legs sliding nearby you. Don't worry about it, it darts a little bit, but it just doesn't seem to want to take its chances with her significantly more muscular calves either, so it doesn't go too far. You draw your hands back, waiting. And then, when you can't wait any longer, you pounce. Well, pounce is the wrong word. It's a strong word. It's definitely a choice. It is a word. You can look up the definition. But from the outside perspective, you have a feeling it looks more like a very aggressive belly flop. The icy water soaks the hood to your chest, and for a moment your head goes blank, muscles tensing all at once. Somehow, though, you retain control of your hand, and you feel your fingers close around something slimy and very frisky. Gripping as tight as you can, you try to haul yourself and your quarry out of the water. The rocks slide out from under your feet, and you find yourself toppling backwards, taking the fish with you. It sails in a perfect, graceful arc through the air, a thing of majesty, truly. Right up until it smacks into your fishing buddy's face. Oh, shit! She hisses, reflexively smacking it. You scramble desperately to your feet to try and catch it. Miraculously, you manage, but you realize pretty quickly that it wasn't just your hand that hit the fish. As your hand closes around its body, fish guts spill out onto your hand. You try to maintain your grip on what has essentially become a bag of leaky viscera, failing to slow your momentum as you crash straight into Lejean. You got falling onto trolls is apparently what MSPA is just good at doing. You both fall on a flailing pile of limbs, Lejean trying to push you off without hurting you, and you trying to pin the fish between both of your bodies, and all the while entrails are pouring everywhere. Well, you get the picture. We're not gonna, let's not show that. About 20 minutes later, you're wringing out your hoodie over the river while Lejean politely averts her eyes. Ultimately, neither of you are sure if you have anything that requires this degree of modesty, but still, it feels right. Her attention is more caught by studiously dissecting the day's catch. Well, crushing the fish to death would have been my first choice, but it's effective enough, I suppose. She's terrifyingly efficient at deboning them, which you suppose should make you nervous, yet you can't deny there's something calming about watching her work. You've wrung out your clothes as much as they can be wrung out. You pull it back on and flop down on the grass to keep watching. As she works, you realize her lips are moving. You ask her what she's saying. She smiles, gently glancing up. Thanking them. They made good sport. They'll make better dinner, and I want them to know it won't be a waste. It's something my Luce has taught me. It's an odd moment for this to strike you, but you guess you've never really put much thought into the process of Luce's to child education. At some point, food gathering responsibilities have to transfer over, you suppose. Your last two drones in Alternia, most trolls you knew provided for themselves via the drones, but this seemed to be significantly before Troll Amazon. The training starts as soon as we've pupated. I can't exactly be dependent on them to feed us for the rest of our lives. Or, well, most of us can't. My red heart, he's still pretty hopeless. She rolls her eyes, but there's transparent warmth in her tone, like there's a pride in his floundering. The sightless, you say? I mean, you've met him. Does he seem like the type? If we're in your city, he talks to vendors in a circle, and we never have to worry. But out in the wilderness, like this, I discovered Rosa had been doing most of the hunting. He's still getting the hang of it, and a good thing too, since our last member joined a sweep later, and we had another mouth to feed. That makes sense. The silencer you met, well, you wouldn't call him squeamish, not really, but him killing animals with his bare hands wasn't easy to picture. Unless he's changed pretty severely in the, past few months? So, what he and Rosa told me, it's true? Time and space, you can just... Words seem to fail her as she settles for snapping her fingers. Like that? Pretty much. God's least favorite anomaly, that's you. Oh man, I want that on a shirt. God's least favorite anomaly. It's not that I didn't believe them, it's just a lot. Yeah, that's more than fair, you think. So, her hands are at a standstill now as she stares down at the fish. Have you gone any further than this? Forward, I mean. Well, sure, a lot further, actually. Centuries down the line, you start telling about the strange troll disease known as the internet. No, I meant us further. Like... She pauses for a long moment, searching for the words. Further along our timeline, for Rosa, for him, or, well, me? Do you have any idea how long it turns out, how all this turns out? Because... She finishes off the last fish and wipes her hands absently in the grass, fingers slowly creeping up to fidget with thick, wiry strands of her hair. She stares out over the water, expression slowly stilling. Sometimes we talk, the three of us. Rosa too, but it's different with... In any case, we talk about what we're trying to accomplish. My red heart, he doesn't like to raise hopes too high. He talks about struggle, but incremental change. My gold heart, well... He indulges sometimes, but he's not exactly an optimist. I think he views this all as some kind of noble martyrdom. And don't mistake me, I know it'll be hard. The hardest thing any of us have done, but can all the suffering really amount to so little? He's fought his whole life, Rosa too. I've seen his words move crowds. I've seen teals lay down their arms at his feet. I've seen terrified Burgundies attack their masters to give us time to escape. So I guess what I'm wondering is, if you've seen anything, any changes, even the small ones. Her eyes flick back to you. How do we end up? You feel a pit of dread opening in your stomach. God damn it. Somehow you always end up here. Or at least with these guys you seem to. Drawn back again to the same awful brink. She looks at you with an expression she is clearly struggling to keep neutral, but the tail behind her flicks and you swear her hair is puffing out a bit more. Bedraggled, as she is by her dip in the river and hands covered in blood, she looks so much like her future self that you can't help but think of her, alone, painting pictures of loved ones long gone. Sorry, I suppose, can you even tell me something like that? Are there some kind of rules? Well, no, you say carefully, there's not exactly rules, even if there were someone around to enforce them. Mostly just an honor code, though you seem to have stretched it more than a few times. From everything you've experienced, however, the only consistent truth to this timeline is that there is one way for major events to turn out. All deviation will be wrenched back in service to the Alpha timeline. Oh. Okay, good. Maybe good, or... Well, at least we can't break anything, right? So, do you know if any of this works? You feel sick. You've confronted the heartbreak of inevitability with these guys before, seen them cycle between acceptance, defiance, and despair over it, watching them, powerless and sad, about to careen into destiny. But it's one thing to know it. It's another thing to tell someone directly to their face that everyone they love will suffer a horrible fate, that they will end up alone, reliving their worst moments in a cave forever. That their work may, through some chain of causality, reap benefits for someone else down the line, but that they themselves will end up with a footnote in the history of their enemies. Somehow, it had been easier with Rosa and the Signless. They believed in the cause, but somehow you felt like telling them the ending wouldn't break them, not truly. Like they'd given themselves time to prepare for the inevitability of failure, like they'd let that possibility sit in their mind, getting just comfortable enough that it wouldn't feel like a waste. The way she talks, though, she's a believer. It's in her eyes, her voice, the look on her face when she talks about him. And you think, no matter how strong she seems, that you don't want to be the one to find out how easily her heart can break. You look right into her hopeful eyes and try desperately to think of a lie when you're interrupted by a peal of thunder ahead. Ahead? What did that say? For a brief moment, you think, thank God I've been saved by dramatic intervention. Then the startled look on Legion's face reminds you that rain isn't just a temporary inconvenience. She hurriedly starts gathering up the results of your hunt. We have to move, now. She struggles to hold on to all the meat before she starts eyeing your spacious hoodie pockets with a worrying look in her eyes. It squishes against you as you run, but you'd still rather that than continue the previous conversation. You run as fast as your legs can carry you, with her closely on your tail, but the rain starts coming down in earnest. She does her best to shield you with her body, but she's still a lowblood and ultimately won't be able to take it much longer than you. She tugs you under a tree for a second's reprieve. Camp is too far. We're going to have to improvise. There's a cave, I know, not too far from here. We should be able to make it. Normally, you're not one to argue with a lady with a plan, but something in her tone makes it sound like she's trying to convince herself, which isn't exactly inspiring confidence. Not to mention, caves mean isolation, and a long period where you have nothing to do but wait the rain out and talk to fill the silence. The last thing you want to do is tie up the last conversational thread. Your eyes cast around desperately for literally any other option, and miraculously enough, you find one. A tent, downhill from where you are. You can't make out any identifiers, but the two trolls moving quickly to finish setting it up are clothed from head to toe in olive. You've been around the troll block enough times to know that calling for help from strangers is asking for trouble, but these are lowbloods, like Lejean, and in your experience, they tend to be a little less murderous. At least they're less likely to do it without provocation. I mean, Paula was an assassin. What the fuck are you talking about? Not to mention, they're definitely closer, and more importantly, serve a vital distraction from any existential meltdowns. It's a risky gambit, but so is bolting to a cave you only might make it to. What do you do? Go for the tent or follow her? I say we go for the tent to try and get the long bad ending. That definitely seems like the incorrect choice. We really need to sit down and address with Lejean, with the Huntress, the disciple, how this works out. And we need to really, it's more of like a conversational type thing. So I think going for the tent is the wrong choice here. So let's go for the tent. What about those guys, you say, pointing Lejean in their direction? She frowns a bit. Well, it's not outright rejection, and as one large drop breaks the leaf canopy and splashes near your feet, that's pretty much all you need. Tugging your hood up, you make tracks in the direction of the tent, leaving her no choice but to follow. One of the two olives has already entered the tent, the other is tying down the last pole, hissing faintly, his hand is burned by the rain. His head turns to see you barreling towards him. Yeah, this looks very threatening. Ominar. Hey, they have a name. Huh. Let's see. Hey, what the hell are you? His voice slowly dies in his throat as you get closer, but you realize he's not looking at you. The footsteps behind you slow before coming to a stop, and you dare a look back. Lejean has stopped dead, and though it's hard to tell through the downpour, you think she might have gone pale. Huntress. Several incomprehensible emotions pass over Lejean's face, and when she finally responds, her voice is oddly strangled. Ominar. Been a while. He rubs hard at his eyes, like he can barely believe what he's seeing. He looks a few times between you and her, and back again, and finally pulls aside the tent flap. You and your weird friend better get inside. You step gratefully over the it only makes sense that they would have a slight lilt as well, slight little accent. And look encouragingly over your shoulder at Lejean. After a second's hesitation, she scowls and follows you in. Oh, that can't be good. Oh, that cannot be good. The other olive is startled by your entrance and opens their mouth to speak before she enters behind you. Holy hells. The other one, Ominar, steps in just after her. Look at the powder beast dragged in, eh? Hello, Dinal. Where the fuck have you been? Dinal gets up, sweeping her into a tight hug. Lejean accepts it. I'm real concerned about the Empress symbol there. Lejean accepts it about as gracefully as a plank, but eventually gives him a light pat on the back before they set her down. Oh, busy for a very long time. Despite her clear discomfort and the Imperial symbols on the walls, it seems doubtful that these two are going to attack you. You set yourself down on a chair before anyone can tell you otherwise. Too long. Haven't seen you since those riots at Crystal Shank. What the hell have you been up to? Well... Her hands fidget nervously, and you realize quickly that no matter how friendly these guys might be, trying to unionize lowbloods probably won't go off well. Rather than leave her to flounder like a good friend, you step in to divert the attention. You ask them how they know Lejean. Her eyes widen, and she starts making frantic motions with her head, but the other two turn their attention on you. Man, where the hell did you drag up this mutant? Call it if I've ever seen it. Ouch! Ow! Ooh! You try to smooth over that though, explaining you're a visitor who's been... helping me with your face, or her face settles into a subtle grimace, barely there if you're not the sort to obsessively track the emotions in the face of those who you're trying to desperately befriend. Work. This apparently is the right answer, as Dinal and Ominar's faces split into grins with a few too many teeth for your liking. Well, count yourself lucky then. Dinal pats her shoulder, but not someone who knows how she tenses under it. You're working with the best there ever was. Right, the best at hunting? Ominar laughs. Right, hunting. So, what is it this time? Heard a couple of batteries got loose from the cell block near here. Or maybe something a little less mundane. Come on, give us something. We've been on the road for a few paragraphs and it's so fucking boring out here. Oh, they're fucking bounty hunters? You're getting the impression you had a different kind of hunting in mind. Still, you try your best to reserve judgment. Alternia is rough, and Lejean is hardly the first assassin you've met. It's not exactly nice work, but you've been in this particular glass house one too many times to start throwing stones now. So, they're all mercenaries then. Former partners, maybe? Denal snorts dismissively at the idea. Sure, we've collaborated our, particular skill sets a few times, but we're not exactly on her level, you know? I mean, once the Grand Highblood himself gives you your endorsement, not like you need to fuck around with us little folks anymore, right? He elbows her in the ribs in a way that's clearly meant to be jovial. Lejean does her best to laugh it off, but it's weak. She's wringing her hands together now. Ooh, I like this. I like this.
Well, yes, well, all of that was a long, long time ago.
She's looking at you when she says it, something in her eyes pleading with you, possibly to leave. At the rate it's coming down now, though, it'd melt both of you to puddles in an instant. Not that long ago, come on. Remember that time in Skirt Scrub? There is nothing left of that cool confidence she had by the river. She looks like she's seriously considering whether or not to take her chances with the weather. Two things make themselves apparent to you very quickly, though. One, there's no out from this tent that you both survive. And if you can handle the rain, these two would only come after you, confused and probably a little suspicious. Two, if one of you didn't start to sound more convincingly enthused about trading war stories, chances are they would start to suspect you anyways. So you grit your teeth, take a deep breath. You don't grit your teeth. You don't do that. And say, what about that time in Skirt Scrub? She seriously hasn't told you the story. Huntress, Modest isn't a good look on you. I'd better make some tea. This is a long one. What follows are probably the longest few hours of your life. Story after story of death, destruction, interrogation, and torture. The largest lacerator trying to smuggle prisoners of the church out, criminals strung from trees and left to the wildlife until they decided whatever was waiting for them in jail was better than their current fate. Information extracted slowly, painfully, from a violet, leading to the destruction of a group of malcontents, vagrant jades assassinated or brought to justice. Ominar and Denal should write a book with their attention to detail. You could almost imagine finding it entertaining if the main character weren't sitting in the room with you, growing quieter and quieter with each passing moment. All the while, the Huntress hasn't spoken without prompting once. She'd answered questions in terms of the bare facts, but mostly she's just stared at her tea. The other two barely seemed to notice, caught up in the fervor of their own respect for these actions. You could hardly blame them. It sounds like she was good at her job, a little too good for your own comfort. Again, you aren't sure how much you can judge her. You've seen firsthand with Polyp and Keneal. For a lot of olives, there isn't much else to do to feed yourself. What's more, it's clear this is a part of her past she regrets. That, alongside the silence in Rose's endorsement, has to count for something. But as Denal belabors the gory details, you can't help but feel your insides twist. The Highblood laughed so hard when you brought it in her head. I thought she was going to piss himself. I thought he was going to piss himself. Lejean smiles wanly.
That's not saying much. He's usually laughing.
Still, I don't care what anyone else says. That was the moment he became his left hand. You know, they still say no lowblood ever got deeper into their inner circles than you. Familiarity perks up your brains. You finally find something in your frame of reference beyond, general familiarity with the concept of violence. Maybe you're out from the tour de force of Lejean's rep sheet. Clown Church, you know that, and the Grand Highblood. So they hire assassins? Clown, I know that one. Oh, fucking we went with oh shit, oh fuck, what was her name? Chahut. From time to time, sometimes you need something a little more subtle than a subject later, or you can't afford to associate the church with it. They're not terribly picky as long as you're discreet. Still, she was obviously his favorite. Probably because you were kind of a believer yourself. Still got the book of mime hymns? She bristles and squeezes the cup tight enough that it groans ominously. It wasn't... Ominar didn't all seem startled as she catches herself, taking a deep breath.
Things change? It was a phase, but I'm not as devout as I used to be.
She sips her tea, which must be ice cold. For a long moment, the room is silent. Things change. Right. His tone is icy, which makes you start to tense. The rain pours insistently outside. The Huntress doesn't look up, even as Ominar gets to his feet. You've changed too, you know. Nobody's heard a word from you in almost 2 sweeps. Somebody started a rumor or you died. She takes another sip, still not looking up. What was the last job you took before you left? Something about a jade and a loudmouth mutant. What happens next happens very fast. Holy shit! In the blink of an eye, she's on her feet. Hand locking around his throat. Ominar barely has time to gasp before she whirls him around and shoves him out of the tent flap as hard as she can. She keeps her arm outside the flap, holding him there until he starts to scream. Denal is dazed by the abrupt upheaval of circumstances, but eventually seems to recover themselves. They get to their feet and reach to pull a knife from their belt. What the fuck are you... The Huntress draws her arm back in and lunges at them, snarling. You are frozen in place as you watch her strike at their head again and again until their body lays still. You can't tell if they're unconscious or if she full on just... She doesn't get off of them, body hunched over their prone form like a predator about to devour their hard-fought meal. Her shoulders heave as she breathes, head sinking down until you can't see her face under piles of hair. Outside, Omanar's screaming gradually fades away. You kind of doubt it's because he found shelter. For a long, terrible moment, all there is the sound of your own heartbeat.
Why didn't you listen?
The Huntress gets to her feet slowly, shakily, before turning to you with eyes filled with hate.
All of this could have been avoided if you just listened. We could have found a cave and now if there was somebody that we're supposed to report to, they're going to come looking. More people who knew me before are going to come looking for them.
Her voice breaks near the end and she has to duck her head to hide her face. She reaches a hand up to rub at her eyes and you almost feel like you need to look away. Your face feels hot with shame. Meekly, you try to apologize, but her expression is just as angry when she finally looks back up.
Rosa said you were a meddler. She has no idea how much. But I swore a long time ago, this part of my past will never, ever hurt my clade again.
She reaches out to you. You think for a second to help you up, but she grips the front of your hoodie and looks you dead in the eyes.
I'm leaving. If you know what's good for you, don't follow me. Sign this last questions, and these are answers you don't deserve to give him. If we see you again, then we see you. I won't pretend I can keep you from him forever. But I won't forget this, and I won't forgive it either.
She lets go of you, extends her claws, and slashes a large strip out of the wall opposite you, draping it over herself like a blanket. She shoots you one last hate-filled look before diving out into the night. You sit there quietly, regret filling your heart as you wait for the end card, and fear as you realize there's no way to avoid the coming conversation after all. Oh. Well. Alrighty then. Hey, we did it in the right order this time. That was a lot. Holy piss. These are so fucking long. All right, so now, now we're going to follow her. In the end, the stakes of that gambler are too high. You pick up a fallen branch still covered in leaves and hold it over your head as a makeshift umbrella, gesturing to her like after you. A faint smile twitches at the corner of her mouth, and she bounds out into the rain, dropping to all fours occasionally as you do your best to keep up. You notice she leads you in a far arc around the tent of the Alls you spotted. You do eventually reach the cave, and you wouldn't know it. And wouldn't you know it, you'd manage to do it before you're both melted into gooey slop. Still, as you shuffle over the threshold, you can't say you're in the best shape of your life. Your body hurts pretty much everywhere, and there's a faint barbecue smell that you think might be you. Just might be me. I smell good. Having your entire body is absolute agony like this takes you back. It's nostalgic, honestly. Man, when did the ground get that close? I like that. The good news, it's pretty hard to feel your flesh being eaten away when you're unconscious. Ooh, back in the cave, huh? We're back in the cave! Oh! The bad news is it hurts just as bad when you wake up. You're lying on a stony floor with Lejeune hovering over you. She's carefully rationing out small portions of sopor from the pouch at her hip and spreading it over the worst of your burns on your arms and legs. You groan at the pressure on your wounds.
Easy, this'll take the sting out of it in a few minutes.
You blink hard, fighting to remain awake as she carefully applies the balm. It's hard when your consciousness seems to be doing its best to split off from whatever the hell the body's doing right now. Over the dull roar of your own pain, though, you hear a deep, scratchy sound. At first, you think it's distant thunder, but it's too close. Growling? Then it clicks. Purring. Lejeune is purring. That's a little, okay. She catches you staring, and her cheeks tinge green.
Sorry. My Lucis used to do it to calm me down. Old habit.
You tell her it's nice, and she smiles to herself as she finishes spreading the last of the sopor.
Good. Unfortunately, that's the last of our stock I can spur. Best I can do is to help you keep it clean.
She starts tearing strips. Oh, God, good. I thought she was going to start licking me. She starts tearing strips from her sleeves and the cuffs of her leggings, using them as makeshift bandages. It still hurts like hell, but you're at least able to think a little straighter. You flex your hand experimentally and thank her.
Don't mention it. If I could, I'd head back into the woods. There's some leaves where if you chew them up and spit them directly in the mouth of the burn victim.
You appreciate the offer, but you think this'll do? No, I don't need to be mama birded here. She snorts, muttering something that sounds suspiciously like your loss, but turns to look at your surroundings instead.
Well, at least the view won't be boring while we wait.
Despite your recent experiences with caves, you have to agree. The stalactites glitter eerily, and the ripples of the river sound almost haunting as they echo off of the cave walls. Something about the place feels almost otherworldly.
I spent a lot of time in caves. Too much, I think.
Well, then boy are you glad she seemed to have dropped the topic of her future. You feel another stab of guilt, but she continues talking without encouragement.
After my Lucis died, well, she taught me as much as she could. I didn't have to worry about feeding myself, and if predators came by, then I could usually handle them. But 6 weeks is still young to be on your own in a place like this. Caves were the safest option. Usually. Sometimes there were bears.
6 sweeps, roughly the age of Aradia's friends. You try to imagine Karkat or Tavros or Kanaya trying to make it on their own. You guess Terezi kind of had, but Terezi was, well, a lot of things, but definitely a special case. The exact role of a Lucis seemed to vary as much as the role of a parent does on Earth, and sometimes it was hard to determine who was taking care of whom. Some kids, like Vriska, would probably even be better off without one. But still, to be that young and have absolutely no one, not even the protection afforded by higher blood, it doesn't sound like it could have been easy. She seems a little embarrassed and takes a sudden interest in picking some dried blood out of her claws.
Well, thank you, but it's really okay. Or not okay, but I don't know, I don't know that, fair...
But I don't know that fair really factored into it. Fair, okay.
But I don't know that fair really factored into it. In that I don't think I ever really expected it to be fair. I don't think anyone does. That's part of the problem. It was just the reality. I was on my own, and I had to make it my way.
She makes a humming noise that might be some kind of mirthless chuckle.
There was a time when I was younger and fiercer, when I was proud of it. It made me strong and didn't give me any excuses. I had to grow or I'd die. I was right and wrong, I suppose. But no matter how strong I told myself I was still a long time before I was ready to leave those caves. And then I had to realize people were much harder than prey.
There's something lonely in her voice, in her eyes. You'd heard it before, in Zabidi during your first call, in Lynera at the coffee shop, surrounded by people she was afraid to know. If you were honest, you heard it sometimes in your own voice. That sort of emptiness that doesn't go away in a crowded room, the sense that everyone else got some kind of message you missed, that you were too hopelessly far behind to catch up. So, how do you go from recovering hermit to low-blood activist? There go her hands again, tugging at her hair lightly, pulling as if to tease the thoughts from her head one by one.
That's a long tale, not always a nice one either. I wasn't the best person. Even that's being generous, honestly, but he said it helps to forgive. People were hard after all that time on my own. There were smells, sounds, words I didn't understand. More of it every day I spent in civilization. I knew the language, of course. I could,
communicate. Got it?
Communicate with people, but trading, bartering, jobs, all of that was nearly gibberish to me. I hadn't had anyone to teach me, and it felt like I'd arrived too late to learn just by watching. It was overwhelming. Sometimes I thought I'd go crazy. But I realized I could make them respect me.
She pauses, like she is gathering the words to say next. You realize now it's a habit of hers, like she has to practice what she'll say a little before she lets it out. You give her the time she needs. Idly, you toss a pebble or two into the pool, trying to see if you can make them skip.
I was strong, and I wasn't afraid of the first.
Furist? I wasn't afraid of the Furist. Even near dawn. Forest, got it.
And I wasn't afraid of the forest, even near dawn. Those are valuable skills to have, especially when you get into richer areas. At first it was just animals, the occasional loose-eye smuggler, but eventually I worked my way up to more discreet services.
She seems hesitant to explain, and you give her a nod. Like, yeah, you're a hip kid, down with the slang for mercenaries these days. Some of your best friends have been mercenaries, and you have the horrible nightmares to prove it.
It was just a job, just survival, the same as I'd always done, but at a certain point I think
She plucks at her sleeves now, nervously.
Things got complicated. I think I started to like being feared, because it meant I was safe. It was perverse, it was wrong, but I didn't know any other way to be. Or maybe I did, but I just wouldn't let myself. It made me important to people somehow. Like inference that I couldn't be thrown out so long as I was part of everything. But all that changed when I met them.
She rolls to her feet, picking up one of the flatter stones you missed and tosses it. It bounces 4 or 5 times across the surface of the lake before ricocheting into the wall opposite.
It was a contract. I was supposed to take him to custody, but I listened to him first. What he said that day wasn't like anything I'd ever heard.
Yeah, you have to imagine open speakers on behalf of Lowblood probably aren't exactly a dime a dozen on Alternia, but Lejeune is shaking her head emphatically.
That I'd heard before. Not as openly as not as openly as he preached it, of course, but if you get any litter of disillusioned lowbloods in the same room without a highblood nearby, they'd say the same. I didn't need anyone to tell me I was a person. I knew that. Deep down, every lowblood knows that. At first, this surprises you. Shouldn't you wonder? You think back on your experience. Sure, there'd been the occasional sellout, a Foster or a Vicare, a lowblood who bought in or pretended to buy in, possibly out of some misguided sense that this was the best they could hope for. But yeah, most lowbloods have been pretty aware of their situation. So, what was different about him? And even then, Foster was all against unifying until the flip to the different timeline. Or the different version of him, I guess. Her eyes are bright now, and she started to pace a bit as her hands gestured, her tail swishing back and forth, in great danger of flicking you if you didn't lean back. I'd never heard anyone describe being a person like that. The idea that we weren't just owed air in our lungs, that the issue wasn't a natural order of strength or too many drones or the sense between low, mid, and high, but something wrong with the fundamental way we saw ourselves as a species. That the reason we continue to hurt like this is that we saw ourselves as inherently designed to be either hurt or hurting. That our refusal to be more was a result of fear and tradition, not biology. What kept us down was fear of punishment and our belief that we had a limited number of people we could care for. That we needed to start separating our own castes into allies, enemies, and victims until the Highbloods didn't need to do anything to let us break down. I followed him after the sermon, asked him what the fuck he thought he was doing, if he was drunk, or broken, or I didn't know what. Something had to be wrong. I wanted any reason to tell my client not to worry. He looked me right in the eye, and he told me, I'm telling them they're allowed to love, that the troll disease called friendship isn't a disease at all, and their ability to pity is a sign of functioning eyes, not just functioning will. She stops. You realize you've been holding your breath. The excitement, you'll admit, is a little infectious. So, what happened? Her face splits into a grin. You have clearly arrived at the good part. I laughed in his face, but I followed him that night too, and the night after. Listened in on conversations. He didn't talk to everyone, just the ones he thought might listen. I tried to pick out a pattern, but there was none. He didn't pick them for any reason beyond that they looked like they might be right to what he had to say. For what he had to say. It was the same as his sermons. People would bring friends, quadrants, co-workers, anyone they could find, because they looked like they might need him as much as he needed them, and he welcomed any who'd listen. She looks at you right in the eyes now, like she's just handed you a gift and is waiting to hear your response. Can you even understand how bizarre that is in a place like this? Not the strongest, the quietest, the craftiest. No shows of loyalty demanded any beyond a handshake at the start. Just whoever needed it, to listen, to be listened to, no questions asked. I followed him to the next town, and the next. He probably would have let me keep it up, but Rosa told me to make up my mind, in a way I already had. Everything changed that week, everything. I knew there was no way to go back, to pretend I hadn't heard him. Watching her talk, it's incredibly bittersweet in all the best and worst ways. The light in her eyes when she talks about this idea of personhood, or unconditional care and acceptance is... moving is the wrong word. Moving implies a level of externality that you don't have in the situation. She makes you want to believe, not just in the sense of intellectual agreement, but the kind of evangelistic fervor that makes you pin people down in the streets because life can't go on until they know. But there's a sadness there too, colored by the outcome, by where this truth takes you. I knew what I had to do then. He hates it when I call it my calling, but I knew it then as pertinent as I'd ever known anything. I needed to make sure other people got the chance. She reaches into the satchel at her side and pulls something out, pressing a small leather-bound book into your hands. You open it to find the pages covered in cramped Alternian writing, so small and close together you can only just make the words out, like whoever was writing was making as much effective use of the space as possible. Occasionally, you'll find small sketches cramped to the corners, usually of the Silas, sometimes Rosa, and Sai. I started writing everything down, every sermon, every place we've been, what we've seen, everything. It's frisky, I'll admit, keeping a record like this around, but if something happens to us, it has to live on. It has to keep going. Keep reaching people. This is the only way I know how. The way she says it, so matter of fact, she says if, but something about her tone says when something happens. She's persevering, you realize, because she knows better than anyone how easy it is to wipe it all out, how quickly someone's words can die with them. You start to read, squinting your eyes a bit to pick through this dense forest of text. It's a Silas's voice, distinctly so, but as you read, you find bits of her in there as well. Not exactly editing, nothing sounds like something he wouldn't say, but like something building off the spirit of his words, tacking on embellishment and elaborating where they had space to do so. You intended to stop after a few sentences, but you find your eyes slide to the next page, and the next, as your head starts to churn. What are you doing here? It's a question you tried to answer for yourself shortly before arriving. Whatever constraints exist over this timeline,
If Aradia is to be believed, they will prevent you from making meaningful change. There is no world in which you can ensure the Silence Rebellion succeeds in their lifetime. And you won't kid yourself into thinking this is straightforwardly about friendship either. This is about understanding. From everything Tyesius has told you, so little is understood about them, so little is preserved. How does she put it? Wiped nice in fuchsia? So this is your role, to understand. Because by God, someone should. You realize, looking down at this is why Tyesius knew. This is why anyone knew, because someone had meticulously preserved it, ensured its persistence long past the point of reason, demanded its essentiality when no place was made for it. The mere existence of this thing in your hands is so courageous it makes you want to cry. And yet, you look back at Lejeune, finally. She's watching you with that sort of eagerness you get when you're showing someone something you know they'll enjoy, and you think about how unfair it is that this is all that will survive. This woman is a story herself, a good one, you think, but it won't be told. And before you can stop yourself, you blurt this out. You ask her if she's really okay with this, committing her life's work to furthering someone else's goals, because that strikes you as potentially an extension of old habits, of letting other people's wishes overtake hers for some sense of belonging. They're noble goals, obviously, goals you share. You're certainly not going to be the asshole out here arguing some both sides shit about clown church and low blood rebellion. Good? But is she okay with this being the only thing left behind? Is she okay with the memory of her being just the function of something far bigger than any individual she cares about? And could she really stand to lose everything to it? All of that spills out of your mouth and into the still air between you, and you feel no better at the end of it. It's impossible that this wasn't a spoiler, that she didn't pick up from the genuine despair in your tone, that you've seen how this all ends, and it's not well. You stare down at the book in your lap and wonder if there's even enough left in your stomach to vomit. The silence stretches on, unbearably long. And then, suddenly, you feel an arm wrap around your shoulders. You are being squeezed tight into her side. When you finally dare look up at her, her face is calm, happy and warm even. The kind that reaches down to the tips of your toes. It doesn't come off like that, doesn't it? Or it does come off like that, doesn't it? I know my red heart worries about it. Like you wouldn't believe, honestly. Talks my ear off about it. Her hand strokes your arm gently, and you are suddenly fighting back tears. How long has it been since someone has touched you this gently? I've always known how this might end. Always. But, as hard as it is to believe, it's my choice. Lowbloods, they rarely have a legacy. For a very, very long time, I worried mine would be one of destruction. One of my hunting prowess. Of my ability to hurt. Even that would only last as long as the people who knew me were still around. But this... She reaches over and taps the book in your lap. This is going to survive. This is going to outlast all of us. No matter what I have to do to ensure it. So that someday, someone like me, who is lost and angry and scared, will get the chance to see that there is always a choice. That trolls are capable of being more, and that they are more than what they've been shaped to be. And if enough people know that, and really act on it, maybe there's a chance. Outside, the rain is slowly coming to a drizzle, and she gives your shoulder one last squeeze before letting go. Not everyone will understand. Like I said, it has to wait for someone who needs it, who's ready to hear. But despite the odds, he's convinced me people are worth it, and there's no putting that away. So I choose this. I choose legacy as a disciple. I choose to make sure that message reaches everyone who needs it, even long after we're gone. As long as that happens, it doesn't matter whose voice is dictating. Because it's still me, my choice, my memory, for everyone who's quick enough to look. You think about this, as the rain slowly dries up and peaks of moonlight slip through this thick blanket of violet clouds. You're about to speak when you hear footsteps approaching. For a moment, you both tense, but when a hooded figure enters the mouth of the cave, that fear evaporates. Yulin? The silence, out of breath, though noticeably unmelted, the hood must be rainproof. You give an awkward wave, but you aren't where his gaze is right now. Lejeune is already running towards him by the time he's crossed the threshold, but he's halfway to meet her. His hands can't seem to decide what to do with themselves, clutching her arms, cupping her face, pushing her hair back like he's trying to figure out if anything's missing. For once, he's at a loss for words. The storm, I thought you didn't come back to camp and well, obviously you solved it, but... His stumbling over his words is comically out of character, but you think very sweet. She seems to think so too, and carefully tugs the hood back, giving his shaggy head a gentle tussle. And so, of course, you wandered out here to save me from a farce of nature, something definitely in your power to do, my hero. She presses a gentle kiss to his forehead, and two just under his eyes. A grin splits his face, making the worried lines around his eyes seem to dissolve. It was worth a shot. I'm glad you're okay. You are sure you're okay, right? She gives an exasperated sigh and tugs her ear. He laughs, batting her hand away. All right. At long last, he seems to notice you. He doesn't seem embarrassed exactly, nor does he let go of her. But unless you're mistaken, his cheekbones are looking a little on the red side. It's good to see you again, my friend. In arguably circumstances of less mortal peril. They're a little cooked. I did what I could, but they'll need another coat of sopra when we get back to camp. That's fine. Sai came back shortly before. Oh, hey, you almost called him a tuna. Before the storm with enough to replenish our stocks for a little while longer. He also said to tell you he got the pencils. Lejeune smiles. It's just a second, but you think Sign may have stopped breathing. Outside, the rain has finally come to a stop. She peers up at the clouds, sniffing the air a few times. We should give it a bit to be safe, but it'll probably be safe to leave soon. You're only realizing now how bone tired you are. It's been a long day with a lot of things you're still honestly unsure about. You're still not sure if it's fair or if you can make your peace with it, even if she has. But as you watch the way she keeps her hand in his when she leans out of the mouth of the cave, moonlight spilling over the two of them, you wonder if she might not at least have a point. Fair might not factor into it. What matters is what they can make out of what they have. It's not exactly a happy feeling, but it's a warmer one by far. Making up your mind, you struggle to your feet. In the process, the fish, long forgotten, slides out of your hoodie pocket onto the cave floor with a truly unappetizing splat. The couple looks over at you, and Silas looks bewildered between you and your spilled cargo. Should I even ask? She comes over to you, examining the pile of squash meat and sighing. We might as well cook this before we leave. Make do. She looks back at you and frowns a bit, dusting off your front a bit uselessly. Your pelt is looking a little worse for wear, though, little warrior. Yeah, you have to admit circumstances aren't great. Things have been a real shit show today. You have a pretty good system with this hoodie. It has a knack for repairing itself through means you don't totally understand. Something to do with the void resetting all your properties. But between the trees, the river, acid, and carrying a pile of dead sea critter around all day, it's in one of the worst states you've seen it. You start to tell her not to worry about it when she stands up and walks over to the Silas, holding out a hand. He looks confused for a moment, but then looks at you and seems to understand. He takes off his cloak and passes it to her. Before you can process the pantsuit situation, she's tucking it carefully around your shoulders and pulling the hood up over your head, giving you a wide grin. Try this on for size. It's weatherproof, and it might help with the harness situation, in case you end up in circumstances of mortal peril again. You look down at yourself. It's a little bigger on you than on the Silas, and not exactly your style, but it's warm and practical. Something that's rarely true for an outfit, for your outfit choices. You still have nightmares about the cape bikini. You look at Silas like, are you cool with me jacking your style? But he just smiles. I have others. Of course you do. Of course you do. It suits. You push the hood back a bit and thank both of them. Lejeune smiles and gives you a friendly rub on the head. Good. Now we need to get the fire going. We've got hungry kittens back at camp. You up for it? The warmth hasn't gone away. It's not the soaring highs you used to get. That sensation when someone you genuinely want to know invites you into their life as though it's the most natural thing ever, but it still hits. As you look between them, you think you understand her. There is so much good in these two, so much good in their work, the Silas and his disciple, and all their reckless caring. And no matter how impossible the world they dream of is, you can't help but want to hear about it, at least for a little longer. So at least the knowledge of it survives with you. So you know what? Yeah, you're up for it. Victory! Oh, little Silas pants. Boy, that's a fucking long one. All right, well, that's it for this. That's a fucking pitiful clap. That's it for this episode, everybody. If you liked it, make sure you click the like button down below and subscribe to keep up with my stuff. New video almost every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Monday and Wednesday, my stream VODs. There's a link down in the description to my Twitch channel so you can see the schedule and everything like that. I don't stream every fourth Sunday, so every fourth Wednesday there's no video. Whole bunch of stuff like that. Comment, what was your favorite part about all this? Was it getting a deep dive into the disciples' backstory as the Huntress? Because that was pretty fucking cool. Or was it a good ending, which was very sweet and just very nice? And share with your friends. If you have friends who, haven't played this game yet, you should go play this game. Like, watch this and then go play it for yourself. Support the people who made this game because they did an excellent job with it. And they continue to do an excellent job with it. I've enjoyed this immensely. But share with your friends. Help grow our community because we also have a Discord that you can link. That you can go to the link down in the description as well. But yeah, that's a lot. That was a long video, everybody. But I hope you enjoyed it. That's it, everybody. Please stay safe. Please stay healthy. And hope to see you next time. Take it easy, everybody.